Hi, my name is Mick Budden. I'm the Landholder Support Officer in the Lower Hunter for Local Land Services. Recently in Lower Hunter we've had quite some significant floods, and today we're going to talk about weeds on riverbanks after flooding, and in particular giant reed, which you can see in the background here. We're on the Allen River here, which is in the Hunter, and we're looking at quite a long stretch of giant reed, and you can see how vigorous and robust the plant actually is, and what it does, it responds really well to disturbed sites, and just forms a monoculture right along the riverbank, and not much else really can grow amongst it. I would like to introduce Jai Gillen. Jai has been quite involved with giant reed control in the Patterson and Allen rivers. Over the years, I would say he would have cleared up to about 50 or 60 hectares of this particular weed along riverbanks.
I've been working with giant reed now for probably 20 odd years, and I have had what I consider a fair bit of experience with it. I initially started on a property called Glenthorne. It was pretty much with impenetrable giant reed, and you couldn't get down to the river through the old canes that were growing. So I decided to do something about it and clean it up, which was an awful big job. After about 5 years of hard labour and persistence, this property now is pretty much clear of giant reed. And now I'll take you through with a few procedures that I've done with Mick Budden.
So what we're looking at here is a rondo donax or giant reed, and these are the rhizomes that are normally under the ground, but they've been exposed because of the flood. And this is fairly typical after flooding. You can see that the water swirls around the root ball of the plant and undercuts it, and eventually this rhizome ball will lift in the next flood and float downriver and recolonise.
You'll have a look at it here, and again you'll see why the water will pick it up and move it further on down the river as a whole section. Then you'll find you'll get new shoots like this, these new young ones here, and it'll take off into the ground, and that'll be your new patch of giant reed. The best way of controlling it over the experience I've had is cut it off as low as you can down to the rhizome. Wait 2 or 3 weeks until it's about 1 metre high with the new regrowth of leaf. And the best way I found then is to hit it with a glyphosate to the recommended dose on the label. But you may have to come back and do that 2 times, 3 times with the glyphosate, because our aim is there to kill off the rhizome, these rhizomes here. If we cut this one off here and give it a glyphosate there, what you'll find is that this rhizome itself will die, but it'll come down and grow a rhizome off itself for a new shoot, which is why we come back and keep spraying it with the chemical 2 or 3 times to ensure that we are getting to kill off all of that rhizome.
So looking at this clump here, mate, it's probably about 25 foot tall, so trying to spray and get those nice green shoots up the top would be quite difficult.
That's right, Mick. You get an awful lot of overspray, and you get overspray, and then you're starting to get the glyphosate and everything onto the native vegetation within the area, which goes back to why I like to take it off down to the short level and start using my glyphosate where you're at a much lower level, and you can get a better application with your glyphosate. It's the hard labour way, but cut him off short and treat your new root shoots off while it's 1 metre high or so.
And a lot of this stuff in the middle is quite dry and dead looking anyway, so you probably want those nice green bits at the end.
You always try and target the newer growth, Mick. I mean, once it's cut, it'll take off. You'll find a very, very rapid growth of the new stuff because it just wants to come out of the ground.
Yeah.
And that is the prime time to hit it with your glyphosate when it's about 1 metre or 3 feet high.
So we're looking at a clump of giant reed that's been pushed over by the flood, but this gives you a good idea of the right height after you cut the plant for poisoning with a spray. It's quite manageable at this height. The shoots are young.
That's right, Mick. Yeah, this is the perfect time to be glyphosating this little bunch here, Mick. It's got nice bit of leaf on it for the glyphosate to work its way through to the rhizome. But I would be coming back myself to spray this. You'd be surprised after you spray this, come back in 2 weeks and you'll have new shoots pretty much the same size again. Which again comes back to the persistence and the spraying and management of it.
We've got quite a healthy bit of rhizome here, and you can see that it's starting to sprout.
Just looking at this underground, and we've got this taller shoot coming up here, and it was cut off and cut and painted. Virtually what we're doing underground is we're bringing the glyphosate down here, and what I found over experience is that glyphosate hit will probably only get us off, kill this rhizome back to here. Hence why I said you need that follow-up treatment to get this one back here. Yep. You know, I mean, on that next treatment, you'll come back, cut him back here, and kill this part of the rhizome as well. I mean, this is a very old rhizome.
Yep.
Again, that's persistence.
Persistence is key.
Persistence again, and it is a long-term project.
Yeah. So have you tried cutting the stalks and directly applying herbicide onto the cut stem?
Yeah, Mick, we've tried that. It was fairly successful method. The only thing that slowed us down there was you've got to get the glyphosate straight onto the stem pretty much as soon as you cut it. So as we were cutting it, I had somebody else behind me applying the glyphosate straight to the stem as soon as it was cut. Because you get about a 20 to 60 second time frame to put that glyphosate on to the effect to kill the rhizome off.
When spraying, I've noticed here that the leaf of the plant is quite waxy. So would you recommend putting a wetting agent with your spray?
Yeah, but again with the glyphosate, mate, a glyphosate you've got to use frog-friendly and water-friendly glyphosate. You can use a leaf wetter, but you've got to be very careful on what you use there. The salts and that in wetters. Again, you can use it, but yeah, just be selective and look into the wetter that you're using.
Okay. And if I was a landholder that just had quite a few small infestations and not masses, and the roots are exposed like we see now, would manually removing that with a mattock be a good way to go?
Well, for small clumps like that, Mick, then that would be the ideal. I'd be doing it that way if it was just a small clump.
Yep.
Would be a small disturbance on the riverbank itself, but again, as I mentioned there earlier on, Mick, if the flood were, I'm surprised that the flood hasn't lifted this up and moved it along anyway, which would happen over time itself anyway. So that little bit of bank at some stage has got to be de-stirred.
Yeah.
Once we've got into that and then we're on top of that, the rhizome, you can go ahead and plant some long stem tube stock.
Yep.
Of the variety.
Yeah, because I've noticed that it really likes disturbed areas, and especially on the riverbank. So once you remove this root mass, you really need something in there to replace it, and getting the right tree species and long stems would definitely be an advantage to keeping your riverbank nice and stable.
Yeah.
So we're on a road next to the Patterson River, and in the recent flooding, this was completely covered with water. And this is a bit of debris, and a lot of it's actually giant reed, and you can see that it's just it's landed here and it's stayed, but the actual giant reed's starting to reshoot amongst the debris and will recolonise here. Just shows you how tough and easily it establishes. So if your property was affected by the floods and you've got something similar to this, it might be a good idea to give it a bit of a clean up so you don't get giant reed infestations occurring. If you have a look at your riverbanks and you found that you have some, generally winter isn't a great time for spraying, but coming into spring when it starts to warm up again is ideal. Hunter Local Land Services has officers that can come to your property and give you advice on control and also revegetation of your riverbank.